Just fucking do it. Subscribe now. 40 or 50% of the success stories we've had in recent years are all German, and they're tied into Asian, or not just Asian, but Bible thumpers sprinkled with Asians. But far and away, the leading group of I was going to say ethnic cleansing, that's not what I meant, ethnicity are German kids. German kids when I say they're slow, they're not slow like retarded slow, but I mean, they're too methodical. That's what the word is, a better word. But they just take, but once they get on the track, once they get they're trained so you're on the right gauge rails, they go crazy. They're extremely successful. That's an understatement for a long, long time. But they like the measurement. They like the steps. They like the sub-steps. Because when you follow the steps like they're written, like they're proposed, there's not hardly any room for failure or for fudging or I don't know the right word. There isn't. They don't give you a choice about this. It's not A or B. It's A, and then it's sub B, and then it's C, and then it's D. If you were left to your own devices, I mean, you do. I don't know what you do, but because the model has been refined for 29 years, I mean, and because it's the best practices, and because I'm diligent about updating it. Again, selfishly, because every success you make is either directly or indirectly, I accrue. And so, and the byproduct is you get rich. Now, it's not a win-win. I'd be disingenuous because I don't believe in win-wins. Who wins more? Well, cash money, you do. And worldwide reputation that I won't ever sell, I do. And that worldwide reputation because I already have the money. It's not like, people I was interviewed on a Florida TV show when I was down there a few weeks ago. It's not like I don't want more money, but if I don't have any more money, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, okay? But for you, that's not the case. I mean, you're like a dog that's been out on a hunt for 5 miles at a water trough. I mean, you're there like you never had water before. And in some cases, you never have. I mean, I remember when he would spend 200 euros on a dinner. Sally and I, Sally didn't know you could buy dinner for 200 euros. That was the first comment. She wasn't being braggadocious. She wasn't being a smart bitch, And then I said, obviously it's not without some wine, honey. Oh. I don't think you can buy a dinner for 200 euros. You can. But now, he wasn't wearing it there, but I saw him with about a 3,000 euro sports coat. And I knew it was a cashmere coat, 3,000 or 4,000 euros. Well, his whole entire wardrobe before wasn't 3,000 euros. And I can see that, and and now this car, whatever, the fucking car, a lot of the kids were buying, what's the expensive Mercedes? Whatever the expensive Mercedes is. And, what? Yeah, okay. They were into that. And then I made so much fun of it, they were trading them in on Bentleys. And then I made fun of that, and then they were trading them in on Rolls. But if they're not making money out of the company, they couldn't be doing this. And they're not. And as Simon Voss, God love him, said, "Oh, I'm buying it out of my money." The Rolls. He bought the Bentley for the company, but the Rolls, you're not running these things like private fiefdoms. That's not what you're doing. But you will have a lot more extra cash. Because, you right now, I'm not saying you make nothing, but closer to nothing than anything. And, when you start making $1 million or I mean, although again, I don't want to sound braggadocious. I mean, it doesn't mean much to me. But for somebody that's only made $50 or $100, $150,000 a year, or $200,000, $1 million a year is a lot of money. It's a lot of money. You're all of a sudden the clothes you buy, the shoes you buy, the whatever you buy, you're not so worried about the price tag. Is what I'm trying to say. And but I've been on the other end too. Where, I used to I bought my first 3-piece suit at a place called Academy Clothes in Los Angeles. It was down in the Meat District. And the first 3-piece suit I bought was $118. I still remember it like it was yesterday. $118. Can't believe it, but this is about 50 years ago, more or less. And no tailoring. Just, if it didn't fucking fit you, it was tough shit. No tailoring, and it was all right, and then life's changed though. But again, I've been driving Rolls since I'm 24 and a half. I mean, so I'm used to that, and I'm used to paying over the top. I'm a big tipper too, a big tipper. I worked for tips. I know what that feels like. I used to park cars when I was 15 years old at a place called the Ram's Horn, which was an exclusive dinner club, a steakhouse owned by one of the people that owned the Rams football team in Los Angeles back a long time ago. And we would park cars for free. You're driving all these fancy cars from the big football players, etc. And I got as little as nothing for parking cars. And then a guy would come, they'd win a big ball game, and they'd come out drunk, and they'd give you $20. Well, $20 in 1962, $20 in 1960 was a lot of fucking money. And, but a lot of the rich guys didn't give you anything. So Sally and I also, she waited tables and stuff like that. And so we're big tippers. Whereas my Japanese part, big fucking tipper. Big fucking tipper. Pena-san, big fucking tipper. And I am. And I probably will die a big fucking tipper. But questions, comments about Andreas. Now, the only thing we don't do here for you is we don't do your first deal. Although I know probably everybody in the room would do a deal with me right now if I did your first deal, but we don't do that. Okay? So, and I'm not up for being chairman anymore. I'm getting out of the chairman business. I'm not getting into the chairman business. But as I told you, and even though I know you, it's hard for you to believe I was your crutch. So I'm doing you a favor by not helping you do the deals. Because then what do you do for your second deal? And I'm not there. Go back, okay. And what do you do for your third deal and your fourth deal, etc.? So no questions. Who's my 5:30, please? 6:30. Okay. Yes, you had your hand up. Yes, sir.
I just had one question. Viking bitch, as you refer to her, she said she has a general.
She refers to herself as Viking bitch, okay?
She has a general as a chairman. Do you recommend that? It wouldn't be my first thought.
Absolutely. Well, no. If you're like you fight, okay, if that's your personality, then you don't need a general. But we've seen guys that fight like you in the ring that need two generals. You know? Talk's cheap. Okay? I never needed a general, although I've been on boards with generals. But I've never, because my natural personality, not just naturally, I'm aggressive. Just naturally, I want to choke you. Now, I'm really subdued now, but I didn't used to be subdued. And all those stories about me, which I will neither confirm nor deny, there is some truth. We'll leave it at that. There is some truth in some of the stuff I used to do. But I mean, you have to have somebody. I don't care if it's a Viking bitch or a 4-star general or whoever. You got to have somebody that can take it to them. I mean, otherwise, kids, you're going to go to Reddit and complain that QLA didn't work. Because you saw the thing that we read this morning, was it yesterday, about the poor Sherpa, right? Yeah. The Sherpa that got his deal taken away from him. Now, you don't want to be that person, do you? And and it was all done legal. He had no recourse other than rearrange their knees, you know. And I told you, I'm Kathmandu, I went fucking bonkers when he's telling me this. This is my birthday present. And Sally said, why don't you wait till tomorrow to tell him? So he told me, but it doesn't have to be that way. If you take the precautions. Some people say, Dan, some sophisticated people that have been in here, not too many, Dan, I mean, you're telling us how to drink milk out of a straw. We know, well, not everybody's as smart as you. I mean, not everybody here in Britain knows that you can force people out at company's house with a supermajority. And I'm not going to explain that again, but not everybody knows that. And if you don't know it, you get fucked. And this is not the only country that's going to be forced out with a supermajority. Most of the free world, you can get forced out with a supermajority. Even Puerto Rico, you can be forced out with a supermajority. In Costa Rica, you just bribe a judge. But I mean, in India, I mean, you don't even have to go through, 100,000 rupees. You can be, vice premier in India. So to get back to your question, it's not overkill if you can do it yourself. But it sounds not more impressive. That's not the right word. More forceful when it comes from your chairman or somebody else. Sometimes the hatchet guy on your board is the lawyer. Who's got piss poor reputations anyway. They're scumbags, bottom feeders anyway. So sometimes it's the lawyer. But it better be somebody.
No, forgive me. I definitely find somebody with bigger balls than me. That's not that. I guess it was just more because yes, they're tough, but they're not the most business savvy individuals.
Now, this particular general that she's got was the head of Logistics Command of the United States Army. So, I mean, he's probably some of the ones that fucked you on your contracts for, not paying or paying, that's what he was, or not what he is today. But you need somebody. Now, see, most of you you're too civilized. Just like Britain is now. They've gone from running 2/3 of the planet to fuck all. But they got civilized. That's what happened. Well, I never went through that process, that metamorphosis. I never got civilized. It's great, I was struck off the Queen's list about 30 years ago for something I said, which I'm not going to repeat, but so I don't get invited to the Queen's shit anymore. Well, now the King's shit. I've been struck off. And to say that when you've got money in Britain, he's got gonorrhea, or he's got AIDS, or to be struck off is a big fucking deal here. Hasn't affected me any, but I mean, I'm supposed to be morally deprived or depraved when you're struck off here. But, I seem to do okay. But you have to have somebody. I'm just telling you. Yes, sir, in the back.
In regards to speaking with the bank, the presentation, is that something and the script?
Yes. And if you're only warming up the banks, and there's 3 questions, right? Remember? You may never in your career bring a bank a presentation, because you're gonna do everything humanly possible, everything divinely possible to do 100% seller finance. You never need a bank, except when you're going to refinance the whole pile of shit. When you've got 5, 10, 20, 40 deals, and you're going to refinance them and pull up gobs of cash for you and your fellow directors. You may go 5 years without a bank presentation. We've had guys that started to exit, and the only time they made a bank presentation, they refinanced 3 times in 8 years. They refinanced at 15 deals, 50 deals, and 75 deals. Pulling out gobs, and then they exited. But commercial banking is not your friend. Commercial banking will take you, when I see these commercials, do they have equity release? Everybody know what I'm talking about? When they say, the old people, you can go get equity release from your house. In my opinion, that's a scam. Yeah. I mean. Yeah. So it's, yeah. I have a couple of older cousins. No, you don't need any fucking equity release. And then one of them who's closest to my age says, well, we're waiting for you to die and leave us money, but I think you're going to outlive us, so we're not waiting for you to die anymore. Yeah. But commercial banking, and I talk about it tomorrow. Commercial banks are not the only financial institutions that do commercial lending. Just because it doesn't have a corner office like the Bank of America or Deutsche Bank or ING Bank or Barclays, insurance companies do commercial lending. Pension funds do commercial lending. There's 465 banking entities in the UK that do commercial lending. There's only 7 clearing banks. So who are the other 400 and whatever? In America, they've got like 700 or 800 financial institutions that do lending on the commercial basis. And there's only 40 or 50 or 80 banks, whatever it is. The Bank of Scotland's office in Houston, Texas, was the biggest credit base in the whole Bank of Scotland's system. Houston, Texas. It was energy. They were energy lenders.
And don't necessarily need to be a citizen of the country to use their...
Could you say it again?
I don't necessarily have to be a citizen of that country to use their lending, correct?
No. It depends. It's not the you, it's the deal. Where are the assets? Where are the assets you're buying that you want to do a commercial lending on? You understand? You're from Mexico. Que barbaridad. Andele, muchachos! Pendejo. Anyway, and if you're going to buy assets where?
I just worry that in Mexico there's like high level of corruption.
I know there is. I mean, we're buying hospitals. I got guys doing exactly what I'm telling you throughout Mexico. They seem to be congregated in 2 places. Guadalajara and Mexico City are the 2, at least for my kids.
You mentioned one of the kids went to Poland, I think.
Yeah. And he's from...
I was thinking...
Okay, well, he had the benefit of being... His father was a multi-billionaire. And so, but he didn't use that. He went there, made 5-6 million euros, came back, showed his dad what I can do in a year. And his dad said, well, you're smarter than you look. And so then he started turning over the business to him. But the Mexican banks understand this. But if you're in Mexico and you're a Mexican citizen, right?
Yes.
Then you should be able to do this. If you're a Mexican citizen and you're trying to buy U.S. assets, that's something different. That's something different. But if you go on the premise, or when you go on the premise of non-recourse lending, I mean, you can buy assets any place. Because Anelli's buying assets all over the world. And he's a South African citizen. But in Mexico, I mean, I'm having flashbacks of my business dealings with Pemex, and I drove up to the president of Pemex's hacienda. This was about 1981, 2, something like that. And his driveway was 10 miles long. His driveway. And it looked like you were driving into a war zone. You know, gun towers, machine guns, I mean. And we get there, and his house, his guest house, was as big as the castle. The guest house that he put the guests in. And I'm sitting in his trophy room where we have a trophy room where they have the things you've killed in safaris and shit like that. His trophy room was 3 times bigger than this pavilion, with full giraffes, elephants. I mean, big things that, weighed 3,000 or 4,000 pounds. That was his trophy room. And he used to like to entertain in his trophy room. And the most he ever made was like $35,000 a year as president of Pemex. And just to stuff a giraffe is about 150 grand. To stuff a giraffe. To stuff a lion is about, 20 grand. And he had like $6 or $7 or $8 million worth of stuffed animals. And but my name is Peña. And so he liked me, to as much as a rapist, murderer, killer can like you. And so, but you can do this in Mexico. Ándale pues.
The commercial banks, I was looking at the definition just to make sure. And in Mexico, there's 2 commercial banks, one which...
Yeah, but no, there's 300 banks that do commercial lending.
The definition. So some banks are to lend money if you're a corporation, and then the other ones are just like...
Well, you're going to be a corporation.
Those are the banks that I'm looking at, right?
Okay, well, no, but there's 50 more of them. But you're going to do seller finance. You won't need the commercial lending. Okay, I'm running behind now. Okay, guys, I've seen my 5:30 a couple minutes late. Take my mics off, please.